fields. These are invisible energy waves or currents and a type of radiation. And they're emitted by electronic devices, especially those that rely on Wi-Fi. And they allow devices to communicate via Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cellular signals. And there are really two main types of EMFs. There is non-ionizing radiation. These are low-level EMFs from Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and cell phones. And then there's ionizing radiation. These are known as high-level EMFs, and you're going to find these in X-rays and UV rays. And ionizing EMFs, like those found in X-rays and CT scans, are known to be more dangerous due to their DNA-damaging potential, whereas non-ionizing EMFs, like those found in Wi-Fi and cell phones, are typically less harmful, but are now thought to pose a health risk if exposure levels are high over long periods of time. And here are some of the everyday devices that emit this non-ionizing EMF on a regular basis. Cell phones, laptops, tablets like iPads, Wi-Fi routers, Bluetooth devices such as headphones, speakers, and watches, smart home devices, and microwaves and other household appliances. Whereas environmental sources include power lines, smart meters, and 5G towers. Now, with the rapid increase in wireless devices, EMF exposure levels are higher than ever before. I mean, think about it. If I go back and I think about when I first got a cell phone, that would have been back in, I want to say it was 2002. So that was it was a little over 20 years ago. Okay. But if I had to go back 25 years, I mean, our exposure was it was very low, very, very low, almost nothing. Now I think about the average person, and you have a cell phone sitting in your pocket for most people, or their purse, on them almost all day long. And then you've got a computer, and then you've got television, Wi-Fi going around your house. And so, I mean, today we're bombarded with probably 100-fold EMF exposure. Now, here's what some of the statistics say. The average person spends over 10 hours per day on electronic devices such as a phone, TV, and computer. And about 95% of Americans are exposed to daily radio frequency radiation from cell phones. And EMF exposure from Wi-Fi and cell towers has increased considerably in the last 2 decades, as we've been talking about, especially in cities and crowded areas. You know, we were recently on a ski trip to Park City, and it was so crazy because I tried to use my phone, and I could hardly use my phone there. And I'm like, this is so crazy. And this is people out snow skiing, okay? So everybody's snow skiing, but there's not a single person on the lift or at the bottom of the hill, or even people at the top of the mountain who aren't filming themselves out there or on having a conversation on a phone. It's sort of crazy, you know, rather than, you know, sort of basking and taking it in. I needed to call Chelsea just to check in on the two girls. And that's just an example of how much radio frequency there is, especially in more crowded areas like cities. Now, here is something that you need to be aware of. There's ongoing research focused on the potential negative impacts of EMF radiation exposure, especially long term. And studies have linked EMF exposure to headaches, fatigue, sleep disturbances, which I think is maybe the single biggest thing, so sleep disturbances, issues with brain function and development, including during pregnancy and childhood, fertility issues, and higher risk of certain types of cancer. And in July 2024, over 250 scientists signed a petition calling for stronger regulations on products that emit EMF radiation. This is based in a journal called Science-Based Medicine. And a class action lawsuit was filed against Apple and Samsung, claiming some of their devices emit radiation above the federal safety limits. And the University of Colorado biochemistry professor Jeremy Phillips explained that placing the AirPods in the ear canal exposes the tissues in the head to high amounts of radio frequency radiation. And Phillips says this increases the risk of tumors and other conditions linked to abnormal cell function. And I just want to share something personally. I've used earbuds in the past, and until I saw some of the research here on how much radiation exposure it could be having. And now what I have is I actually have a simple, like I had in the past, it's Bose, it's like a wire cable that actually plugs into my phone. And so anyways, just being more cautious and conscious about using things like earbuds and some of these other, again, anything that's using in higher doses this radiation exposure. Now, let me say this. I think if somebody's using earbuds for 30 minutes a day on occasion, and I'll get into this in a minute, your body can deal with a certain level of toxicity. Your body can deal with a certain level of radiation. However, some people are wearing them all day, every day. And that's what this really, I guess this is the warning I have for all of you, is that your body can deal with some Wi-Fi. Your body can deal with some EMF, okay? Our bodies are really resilient to certain levels of toxins. I mean, listen, we're exposed to toxins every single day. There's hardly a person watching or listening to this that doesn't drink plastic on a regular basis or doesn't breathe in fumes from cars, these environmental pollutants constantly. I mean, so our bodies can deal with a certain level of radiation. One of the things that starts to happen with most people is what they call it the bucket effect, where, okay, you have this radiation that is adding to your toxicity in your bucket. And then you're drinking from plastic bottles. And then you're using parabens and, all of these other chemicals. And then you're getting, a lot of these, PFAs from Teflon pans. And finally, your bucket overflows and you come down with a toxic illness, okay? And that overwhelms your liver and your lymphatic system and your kidneys, and actually making your organs sick and diseased. Now, again, having almost none is the best, but I think for some people you can tolerate a level of toxicity because God created our bodies to be able to deal with a certain level of pathogens and invaders and toxins. However, know that most people, this is adding to your toxic load. To be on a device for over 10 hours a day and to be wearing earbuds or all these other things for several hours a day is absolutely adding to this toxic burden of your body. And the International Agency for Research on Cancer has classified these EMFs as possible carcinogenic to humans based on limited evidence linking EMFs to childhood leukemia. In 2018, the National Institute of Health study, here's what they found. A 10-year-old study, the most comprehensive one to date on EMFs, found a significant link between high EMF exposure, like those involved in 3G cell phone networks, and increased cancer risk in male rats. The exposed rats were more likely to develop cancerous tumors in their hearts and brains, according to the 10-year study. So listen, there is evidence, and anyone who says otherwise isn't reading up on all the research, there is evidence that EMF radiation over long periods of time can cause cancer along with other neurodegenerative and toxic illness. And what happens with EMFs, I want to explain how this works, is it disrupts your cellular communication. And by the way, cellular communication is really one of the hallmarks of aging or anti-aging. And so if you are aging more quickly, your body has poor cellular communication. In fact, one of the things that medicinal mushrooms do, if you've ever used anything like reishi mushroom or cordyceps or chaga or done any sort of medicinal mushrooms, is they enhance and support cellular communication because they have a unique type of polysaccharide called beta-glucans. And these have benefits for this. Well, what EMFs do is they damage and disrupt that, and for the negative, not allowing your cells to communicate in a healthy way. So if you think about it, your body responds via electrical signals, okay, and via chemicals. Well, radiation is a form of energy that disrupts that, okay? And so imagine that you've got if you've ever tried to, use your cell phone when you're in a parking garage or in an elevator, right? You're in an elevator, all of a sudden it goes out, it stops working. Think about EMFs the same way. They keep your hormones, everything from thyroid hormones to testosterone to estrogen, signaling properly. It keeps from the brain sending signals to your lungs and to your bowels to move and to just for your body to function properly. So think about EMFs in that way. They are disrupting